Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to NOLA Theater Talk. My name is Alan Smason, and we're here every Monday and Friday night for the most part. Sometimes not, but we broadcast to the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group. You can become a member. All you have to do is just ask. We also broadcast to the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, which is a support page for theatercriticism.com, a website that I founded for theater reviewers. And we also broadcast to my own YouTube channel. You can subscribe to that if you want, and you'll get all of the updates as to what's going on with it, or not. It's up to you. I wanted to have an outlet for people who aren't on Facebook so that they could basically follow what we're doing. Again, all of our videos are archived on all of those sites. The group for NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, the theatercriticism.com Facebook page. You can go there and see it, as well as on YouTube. So if you miss something and you don't see it on my own personal page, which I usually upload to after the fact, you can check that out for yourselves and hopefully enjoy that. By the way, just so you'll know, coming up this Friday, we've got some readings that are going to be done by some local actors that I'm not going to reveal all of them, but they include some people you may have seen already doing some readings here. And I want to remind everybody that we're going to start at 8 o'clock. We have a very special production. It's basically a takeoff of Glass Menagerie done with handheld figurines that I really don't want to go in any more than that. It's really marvelously done by a company out of England. And I want you to see that in its entirety. It runs about 20 minutes. We got permission from the company tonight to run it. I'm going to have an interview with the executive director for the company as well. So we're going to have a real celebration for Tennessee Williams's birthday, which is Friday. So I want everybody to mark their calendars and again keep that in mind as to what's going to be going on. In mine with Tennessee Williams's birthday this week, of course, for the Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival as well. I'm having a Manhattan because aside from New Orleans, I think Tennessee Williams' most favorite place to be, other than maybe Provincetown, was New York. And I think he had so many successes in New York. It was part of his inner being, if you will, just like New Orleans was. But I want to talk a little bit about Tennessee Williams tonight, and our guest is going to get right to the heart of the matter. Again, I'd like to welcome one of the co-artistic directors for the Tennessee Williams Theater Company, and we're going to find out all about what they have been doing, and also talk a little bit about a bit of a tome that he has written in reference to Tennessee Williams. So please welcome, if you would, ladies and gentlemen, Augustin Correro. There he is in all of his splendor. How are you doing?
Hi, how are you? I'm great.
It's a good thing I didn't introduce you in one of your earlier stage roles as Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh, well, that was Nick, the other co-artistic director. I just did that one. I got to hide off stage where I like to be.
So now Nick is not able to be here tonight. I was hoping to have him with us, but he has another, and that, you know what that means, of course. He's going to have to come and do one of these himself. So we'll start part one tonight, but part two will be concluded when Nick is on. Okay, if that's a deal. All right. So tell me first off, right after Jesus Christ Superstar, I know you were on Le Petit stage with that, and were you directing that? Was that right?
Yeah, I directed.
So Nick was on, and you were directing, and I'm trying to remember exactly because it's a few years back, but somewhere around that time, you said to yourself, hey, there's a need for a new theater company in New Orleans, and I'm going to found it. And you and Nick kind of came to the rescue there. This is no affiliation with the Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival, which later on you did have a bond that you all made that I think was a sort of a marriage made in heaven. The same thing with Two for Tennessee that was done by another company, Harold Gervais had done. I said, why aren't you all working with the Tennessee Williams Theater Festival? But for some reason, when they were first trying to do some things on their own, they didn't really open up to a lot of possibilities, which I think one of the things that we learn, in terms of coming back from Katrina and in terms of being viable, is that the more collaboration that companies do with themselves, the more diverse and the more strengthened each company is by working with the other. It's sort of, I don't know, self-fulfilling prophecy maybe, but the more different parts that you have working on projects, the better off you are, because eventually, you're going to learn from what they know, and they're going to learn from you, and you're going to, be able to have shared experiences. I just think that it works out better, and I think it's been proven so many times that trying to do everything on your own will essentially cause you from time to time to fail on your own.
Yeah, I think from the very beginning, I actually give Nick credit for this, because it was when we were way up in New York, having a sojourn up there for a little while. In the dead of winter, we look at each other and we're like, we need to move somewhere warm. And I said, I've always wanted to live in New Orleans ever since I was growing up in Mississippi. And he said, just fantasizing essentially, yeah, and if we go there, I want to start a theater company. I know what I want it to be, and I even have the name for it. And he said, the Tennessee Williams Theater Company of New Orleans. And I was just like, yes, of course. How is that not already a thing? And that was actually what we heard a little bit of when we first started too. Everybody was like, how is that not already a thing? Because we have the festival. But the festival, like you were saying, was kind of like having to rely on the kindness of theater companies in town to do Tennessee Williams shows, because they didn't have that sort of leg. We started in the summer, so the festival was already over for that year. So we had a nice lead up to the Williams Festival the following year, and Paul and Tracy were tremendous in sort of helping get us in their programming from the start. And when we did those world premiere short, strange plays. And so it was always a symbiotic relationship. It just took a few months for us to get there, because we started in July. We founded ourselves in February, but we started in July. And it wasn't until the following March that we were able to do shows. But we've just had such a great time collaborating with them ever since. And in a way, we've seen some of the other theater companies in town sort of relax for a year, because every year it was this whole thing to get like 3 or 4 Williams productions up and running for the Williams Festival. And so now everybody looks over their shoulder like, oh, at least TWTC's got one of them.
I gotta tell you too, one of the things that was a problem for the Tennessee Williams Theater, Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival, back in 2015, I brought down the American Theater Critics Association. I was the conference chair, and you would think that Le Petit, which of course was so beautifully positioned in the French Quarter, right there within walking distance of all the different hotels, etc., that they would have had something on the bill that would have been complimentary to the Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival. And what did they have? Dinner with friends, right? That was what it was?
That was that year. That was a flux year for them, because I think that was right when they were transitioning leadership. So
but again, the point is that you could have had Vieux Carré, which you all ended up doing. You could have had Streetcar Named Desire. You could have had Suddenly Last Summer, which by the way, Suddenly Last Summer was being done by Southern Rep. So kudos to them. But the fact of the matter is that there are a number of different New Orleans centric pieces that could have been done, and it was an opportunity to have the theater critics see it, and instead they saw a play which and I'm not trying to put down, Rene Piazza had done it previously at his Actors Theater, and so he redid it again. But I just thought that, hey, we could have seen Dinner with Friends any other time of the year. But when you've got the theater critics down, I mean, why not have some Tennessee Williams presented, so that week of theater was really more or less revolving about Tennessee and his impact here, and vice versa, the impact of New Orleans upon him. So I just thought that it was a missed opportunity. But you all started out you all were producing, if I'm not mistaken, at the church on Henry Clay, which was Redeemer Presbyterian at one point, and
I don't remember it as that. I remember it as the St. Charles Avenue Christian Church and it had the I forget the denomination that primarily functioned out there, but I know it had a long history of.
Yeah, I think Redeemer met there as well. I think it was Ray Canada, who's sort of a celebrity and a minister. I think he met there with his church, like on Sundays, like at 10 or something like that. It was like block programming, like you have on radio.
That was part of our scheduling. Was
right.
block programming with various congregations and meetings.
And the first thing that I remember, and I may be wrong, wasn't it Kingdom of Earth?
It was. Yep, that was Kingdom of Earth.
Now Kingdom of Earth was the very first time I had seen Kingdom of Earth. Is that Kate?
That's Kate. Yep.
Yep, Kate Kuhn. This is also, I think,
that one's not. That one's the Rose Tattoo.
That's Rose Tattoo. Okay, so I was, because it was listed from. I was saying I don't remember this one being in there, but anyway, long and the short is you had Kingdom of Earth, but that's not the normal title for that particular show, correct?
It's weird. You know, I write about this very briefly in my book, but it began as Kingdom of Earth, a short story, which was borderline in a lot of ways erotica. And then it turned into a short play, about a 20-page play, maybe. And then he adapted it into a long, full-length play, which is the version that we did. And when it was opening on Broadway, the producer said, I don't like the name Kingdom of Earth. I have a better title. They said, what is it? They said, The Seven Descents of Myrtle.
Yeah.
I don't know what the thought process was to say Kingdom of Earth. That's not a zingy title, but you know what is.
Yeah, right.
So that was the title on Broadway, but pretty much every production since then has gone back to Kingdom of Earth because it's so much less like you don't have to explain that name so much. When you explain Seven Descents of Myrtle, it gets, first of all,
it's a little racy. For those of you who don't know what it's all about, it involves some sexual innuendo there. Let's just leave it at that. So we'll leave that. The descents are not just moving up and down from a particular point to a particular point. It really involves some other aspects that probably it's not for the children's hour. You know, we'll just leave it at that. But again, I think if I'm not mistaken, I mean it was beautifully done. I mean, you know, and then the follow up to that was that piece that you did, which was sort of like a reading of different short pieces, right? But it was sort of science fiction, or was that third?
That was third because we had small craft warnings at Mags on Elysian, which is still to this day one of my favorite shows we've ever done.
It's a fabulous work. And was that the one with Martin Covert in it, or was he in a? No,
we had Bob Eads.
Bob Eads, okay, yeah. I did see. Now I think they recently did another version of Small Craft Warnings over at Meg's on Esplanade. Is that right?
That was ours.
Was that yours?
Yeah, I feel like the Martin Covert one was the one some years back that, don't quote me on this, but I want to say it was like at the Chat Noir.
Okay, so I got a question. Is this then one of your pieces?
That one's not. That looks like
it's a Small Craft Warnings. It was done. That's what I think. So I think there must have been two of them there. Maybe.
Might have been.
Yeah. In any event, I know that I've got. I run down pictures all the time, and they're all labeled like by the name of the play. So I have to say, which year was this? I have to get a better numbering system for my work as far as it goes. So that first year, then you did have Small Craft Warnings, again, a lovely work, and then there was this sort of ethereal science fiction kind of like sort of almost like a Twilight Zone kind of a thing, and it was all disconnected, and then it all sort of came together, didn't it?
Yeah, so this was a couple of world premiere Tennessee Williams one acts because we just keep returning to these trunks of plays that get discovered or that have never been published, or if they've been published, they've never been produced before. And this was the case of two plays that had never been published or produced by Tennessee Williams that came out in a volume by New Directions called Now the Cats with Jeweled Claws. And it was one of either three or four one-act plays that were brand new, never been published, and we got the rights to do two of them. And then I think Provincetown got the rights to do one of them, and somewhere else might have gotten the rights to do another one. I'm not sure about that. And then we paired it with another play from that volume. And that was part of the Williams Festival that year because it was world premiere Williams, no brainer, do it with the Williams Festival when you got folks coming into town who are already interested in this material. It was coinciding that year with the launch of the book, the volume of one acts. And so people were able to see the plays, then go back to the Monteleone and buy the volume. And it was just a lot of fun for us. But the trick was finding a way to sew these three completely unrelated plays together and find the stylistic through line. And for us, that was the science fiction, fantasy, horror magazine, Weird Tales, that Williams was published in as a young person. And when we came up with that idea, we were like, well, what if these are plays coming off the page of this bizarre magazine? So we had a young narrator who was a 15-year-old boy reading the introductions to these very unusual plays. And one of them, was science fiction. He wrote it in the 1930s before he ever imagined the Glass Menagerie. He was writing about wars out in space and things like that. So very much more of a weird and experimental playwright than he's often given credit for.
It doesn't, I think only dedicated Tennessee Williams scholars would know about it. Thomas Keith would probably know it off the top of his head, but I think most of the people would not know that he was involved with that kind of writing. So,
Thomas would know because he edited the volume.
Yeah, it makes sense. Absolutely. Again, I've got the StreamYard.com/Facebook. The reason why is that in case you wanted to post something on either Facebook or on YouTube, a lot of times they want us to make sure you give permission for that third-party application to utilize StreamYard, which is our platform that we're using. And once you do that, you can have your name appear. So in the past, we've had several people leave names, and then I go back on Facebook and I see, oh, gee, that was Janet Shea who left that word. So, if they get permission to send those things out, it shows up pretty well. Again, you're watching NOLA Theater Talk with us tonight. Our guest is Augustin Correro, and we'll be broadcasting to our various places on Facebook that we have, both the theatercriticism.com page and also the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook page, as well as on our YouTube channel. So check all those out if you can. Again, I mentioned that I'm having a Manhattan in honor of Tennessee. I didn't know what you were having tonight. What did you bring in the room?
It's fizzy water with ground ginger.
So it's sort of a ginger water. Would that be?
Yeah, a ginger fizz or something. Who knows?
Okay. All right.
There's probably not a name for it because it's lightweight.
I never tell people they have to bring in something alcoholic. I strongly encourage them to do so, but that's another story. During a pandemic, it's always nice to know that there's somebody out there having a drink in your behalf and helping you ease through these troubled times. Augustin, the elephant in the room, right? Tennessee 101. You're going to be doing a talk at the Tennessee Williams Festival. I believe, is it scheduled for Saturday? Is that the day?
It is, and there's some really exciting news that we're probably breaking right here, although the Williams Festival already knows about it and they're planning a little blitz to go with it. But the big news is I'm actually going to be up in Columbus, Mississippi at the time of the Williams Festival this year because I have a signing on their little Main Street bookstore sidewalks festival. So they've got a bookstore called Friendly City Books. It's a relatively new bookstore. It'll be one of their first few signings total, and it's outside, socially distanced, masked, etc. But I'm going to be stuck in Columbus, which is not such a bad thing because I get to do the Tennessee Williams 101 for the Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival from the parlor of Tennessee Williams' first home. So Edwina and Mrs. Dakin's parlor in the very first house that he was brought home from. Right on the main drag of Columbus. I'll be in their parlor where they entertained, trying my best to entertain everybody else. So just call me Miss Edwina that morning, I suppose.
That's interesting. I had actually seen some of photos, and I guess it was the Tennessee Williams exhibit they had at the Historic New Orleans Collection back around 2015 when we had the theater critics down here, that they had some of the pictures that were taken of his early years from that house. So yeah, that's a coup. That's now let me ask you a question. Is this going to be pre-recorded, the piece that you're doing? Has it already been recorded?
No, it'll be live. And this year it's going to be a little different than in past years because I know my limitations. I teach kids for 100 minutes at a time, 3 times a day at school. And so I understand that we've been sitting in front of Zoom a lot in the past year. So rather than it being the straight lecture like I typically do with the question and answer at the end for about 10 or 15 minutes, instead for this, I will be giving you the narrative, yes, but moreover, I'm going to be doing a moderated Q&A as we go through. So if something sparks your interest and you want to ask about that, my editor, Devin Adams from Pelican Publishing, is actually going to be moderating for me. So she'll be taking the questions and sending them up to me so that I can answer questions in real time and also deliver what's hopefully going to be just as entertaining and as quick pace to talk as I always try to give.
So I know there's a small charge for this of $10 for people to participate. And again, they go to TennesseeWilliams.net, if I'm not mistaken, to be able to see, you know, the presentation. But the fact is that that's quite a coup that you're going to be able to do that. Now, I wanted everybody, in case they're looking for, I know this is a little bit of a picture that they had from the festival, but I wanted to just go ahead and put that up there so people can see TennesseeWilliams.net 2021 version. Now, that's a picture of obviously the book above your shoulder, right?
Yeah. I, in fact, have one right here.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Look what I have.
Oh, and logos.
Yeah. You know, this is not a slouch show. We try to come up with some really phenomenal things from time to time. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes not. But yes, you have your logo there now. And now again, let me see if I can get you to show the book in its entirety and get a little solo there. There you go. There's a reveal. Tennessee Williams 101. So how many pages is this? This is
so last count, unless it's grown since this morning, it's 214. Yeah, so it's 200 and I'm going to say 213 because that's a blank page before the bibliography. Right. So it's 213 pages.
Tell me the genesis of this. Now, how did it come about? Was it something you wanted to do from a scholarly point, or was it something that you were inspired to do after working with Thomas Keith and all those other people? Or
it was definitely something that would not have happened without the Thomas Keiths of the world and the Brooke Hannemans of the world. Like it wouldn't have been a thing. Primarily because Brooke Hanneman, who's a New Orleans native, she introduced me to Tennessee Williams and made me completely rethink my way of seeing him. And Thomas Keith sort of introduced me around to the Tennessee Williams scholarly community in a way. But the real genesis was that when I started doing Tennessee Williams 101 for the Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival as a presentation, I guess it was the second or third year, Antoinette Dalteris over at Pelican Publishing comes up to me following the presentation, and she says, you know, I work for a publisher. This should be a book. And I was like, I'm glad you think so, because I think so too. And I had never really thought that seriously about it. People had said, this should be a TED Talk. This should be a book. But when a publisher approaches you, you start to listen. And so then she had her editor come and see me the next year, I want to say. And then they drew up a contract. We went through all of that, and they decided, you know, let's do this. Let's make it into a book. And they gave me a deadline, which by February of last year, I was just really pulling my hair out saying, how am I going to reach this deadline? And then the plague happened. And I was one of the lucky people that had a project.
Now you got time.
By myself from my home to do during this horrible event. And so I sort of like hunkered down and I turned out the remainder of the words. And then there were still things to do. Like I actually did the illustrations for the book as well as the graphic design for the cover. Those were just some extra things that I wanted to have that sort of creative control over. And they were amenable to that.
Normally, those sorts of things are not left up to the individual author. They usually have somebody to do that, and they say we have better people to do it than you. So, kudos to you for being able to pull that one out. You know, normally they go to the professionals that they have at their behest, and they don't normally deviate from that. So that's pretty good. Now, were you dealing with Pelican at that time, or was it now River Road by the time you started working with them? So
now they're Arcadia, which is the sort of umbrella of, I won't tell this correctly. There was Pelican and there was River Road. And now the editor from River Road, I guess, is the CEO of River Road or what have you, is now over Pelican and River Road, but they are both combined an imprint of Arcadia Publishing, which is a publisher that has branches all over the country that focus on sort of local interest books, and they work with local communities to sort of get those books out. Now, when we first started working on this book, we knew that it was more than just a local release. So that was one of the things that sort of changed in the transition. And so we are still working to sort of push this book out to places like New York and San Francisco and Key West and London, places that are theater towns that would really be interested in this material.
How do you have the book structured? Is it structured for somebody who is completely, I would say a new student to Tennessee, or is it somebody who's got a rudimentary knowledge of Tennessee, or is it something that even people who have been to many plays would be able to get benefit from?
It's all of the above. It really is. I try to approach it from the most accessible point for somebody who's never even heard of Tennessee Williams, besides maybe his name. I explain the action of the play in Streetcar Cat and Menagerie, just in case you missed one of those. But at the same time, it has appendices and deep dives for people who either already know plenty about Tennessee Williams, who this is either a refresher, or maybe there's a couple of Easter eggs and tidbits hidden in there that they don't know. And there's certainly material for theater makers. In fact, I have entire sections dedicated to the production of Tennessee Williams, themes to be found in Tennessee Williams, and I look at it from a historical and a literary and a critical historical way, while also trying to keep it something that's fast-paced and accessible enough for the average reader. And by average, I mean sort of me. I have a short attention span. I like bullet point lists and timelines, so a lot of that is worked in there too. So hopefully a vast swath of readers will be able to enjoy it.
Well, again, anytime you can get a book out, I think it's like birthing a baby. It's a process that requires not just, input from one person, the author, but, a whole slew of different people. I mean, you've got people who are doing the editing and the copy checking, et cetera. And you've got all of the galleys that have to come in, you have to be proofed, et cetera, and then you have to send it back. So
it's all digital now because of the pandemic.
Right. So now it's got to be a difficulty, because in Arcadia, I would call Arcadia similar to the Google, of the internet. Arcadia is to the book world, because they publish so many different books, and most of them, like you said, are local in nature. As an example, Dominic Massa did an Arcadia book on radio in New Orleans. He did another one on TV in New Orleans. And another friend of mine, Erwin Lockoff, did one on the Jewish community in New Orleans. So,
I have the Italians in Mississippi one.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, the whole idea, they have stuff on City Park, or if you go to other places, they'll do one like in Cleveland, they'll do one on Lakeview Cemetery. It's just like, okay, great. But, the point is that they're basically doing local content on a national scale. And that's what Google is trying to do. They're trying to do as much local content and taking it on for themselves as far as it goes. So, again, congratulations to getting a book out. This was your first book?
It was.
And are you working on a second, or are you going to take a break?
I'm taking a break, but I've got like ruminations of what is next. And it's a complete change of pace and a complete change of topic. So it won't be a Tennessee Williams book. I'm sorry. And it won't be a theater book, more than likely. So if it ever materializes.
Well, I always wonder about what interests people as far as it goes. I never really, this year, of course, we had some interesting things that went on with Tennessee Williams Festival going virtual. They had to break it into 3 parts. So Saints and Sinners was 3 weeks ago. Last week was, or 2 weeks ago, whatever. And then last week was the weekend residence, if you will, for the scholars that they had. And then this week coming up is going to be the regular festival. When I say regular festival, it's going to be the festival that's going to be more centric about and dealing with Tennessee Williams as opposed to dealing with either LGBTQ questions or dealing with Tennessee Williams from an academic standpoint. So this is where this is more. I would call this more of the popular part of the festival rather than the academic or rather than the one that's more specific to the LGBTQ community. So. And they had to do that, right? I mean, that was the reason they had to do it, was because there's only so many resources you can have. You can't have them butting up against one another because, you'd basically be at lost purposes for putting things on. So it's important that people understand that they broke it up for a reason. It wasn't something that wasn't thought out. And again, Paul Willis, I believe Paul started with the Saints and Sinners, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
And now he's head of the whole festival. So. Congratulations to him. We started off. We showed a couple pieces that we had, but is this from one arm? I'm trying to check because it looked to me.
Yeah, that one's from one arm.
And isn't that Rachel Groves Whitman or Rachel Whitman Groves or Casey Groves' wife, right?
Yeah, it's Rachel Whitman Groves and Adler Hyatt.
And this is the provocative piece about the. What do we call them?
So he is a sex worker,
right? But more to the point, there's a name for it, a monopede, right? Isn't that the name that we use for that?
Oh, I guess that would be a foot because pede is
okay. Well, I'm trying to remember.
I'm not sure. But he has only one arm.
Right, right. I don't know whether or not pede means definitely foot or means arm too, or can refer to arm. But yeah, I mean, basically somebody who's missing a limb, like the Venus de Milo, right? Yeah. I mean,
Venus is missing like one and a half.
1.5, I know, but but I mean, somebody who is absent, a limb, but is still considered an object of desire, because that's really what it's about, right? Isn't desire is pretty much.
Oh, it's chock full of desire. It was originally a screenplay based on a short story by Tennessee Williams that never hit the light of day because it was such, the material was considered lewd even for the end of Williams's life, moving into the 1980s. And then Moises Kaufman of the Tectonic Theater Project, who's probably best known for being on the team that adapted the Laramie Project, the docudrama.
And 33 Variations.
And 33 Variations. He put together the stage version of that screenplay, and we were lucky enough to be able to present it a couple of years ago at the festival. I want to say it was our spring production. So that was the only time we have ever done a show not strictly by Tennessee Williams. Up until this point, it's been all Tennessee Williams plays, and then this one was an adaptation of a Tennessee Williams play.
Yeah, but I know that you're trying to do all Tennessee Williams, and I applaud you for the efforts. But every now and then, if you do something, I mean, I know you did a production at, was it Phillips Restaurant of
Birds? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was the Gnadische Fräulein, is that right?
Yeah, Gnadische Fräulein.
Yeah, that you did, and that was with. The wonderful actor who was in the James Fitzmaurice play too, who was known perhaps from her other earlier work doing vaudeville. Is that, what do we call burlesque? Burlesque. Kind of a, and that was she's fantastic. I love her work. But
she's been in probably 4 or 5 of our shows by now. She's wonderful. Lynn Gathright.
Right.
Alias Bunny Love.
She goes by Bunny Love. That was what I was going to say. I mean, she goes by an alias, which I didn't know if I wanted to use because of the fact that when you get down to it, I mean that's really not a name that you want to use as your acting name.
I think she does just fine with it.
Yeah, she's really. As a matter of fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, nope.
That's Janet. Yeah, you have her up a minute.
There she is. There she is.
And the frizzy-haired mess of a character that you showed right at the beginning that wasn't Kingdom of Earth was in fact her also. That was her as well. So this is Lynn as well as Lakeisha Glover, who starred in Small Craft Warnings, and she's actually a member of the TWTC board now. And there's Lynn, alias Bunny, again as the Strega in The Rose Tattoo.
Yeah. I mean, she's a great actor, and I would tell her, anytime she's on stage, I want to see her because she's that good. She really is. I know that other people have done, other works that she's done similar, but I mean, I was really enthralled by what she did. So, I have to ask, in terms of actors, in terms of actors, are there any particular that jump out for you that you go to first, that you say, hey, I've got this. It's a male or a female character. I want to go with so and so first. Are there people that jump out at you?
It was Carol Sutton. It was always her, and of course Janet Shea as well, in those types of roles. But also there are amazing younger actors as well. Elizabeth McCoy is tremendous. The same is true with Lakeisha Glover. I think she's outstanding. We just had the pleasure of working with Tanaj Jackson recently, whom I've been wanting to work with for a long while. And of course, I'm naming lots of women because we're talking about Tennessee Williams.
Tennessee Williams is not known for writing a lot about men very well.
And we make a joke about that in our festival presentation too.
I mean, I think Tennessee Williams would even admit to it.
Yeah, and
I think he knew how to write about women better than he did about men because perhaps maybe he understood women more than he understood men.
Or maybe he just had such a hard time understanding men. He had no choice.
Good question. Vieux Carré, you did that at the Marigny Opera House, right? That was, I mean, an amazing production. I'm thinking about some of the other people who were involved. You had just an all-star cast. We mentioned obviously Janet Shea, but you didn't mention Tracy Collins.
Oh my God, she's been in half a dozen of our shows too. She was scheduled to be in both of our shows that got pushed back in the last season.
Yeah, now Tracy is probably one of the best comedic actresses that there is out there. But in terms of just female character actors, she probably, when I think about character actors, I probably would think about her first.
Hands down, she's incredible. She could be funny. She could be sincere. I actually, I've worked with her on The Mutilated. It was Beau Bratcher who directed Vieux Carré. And that was her first work with us, was through Vieux Carré. So we're so glad that Beau connected us. And in the production of Summer and Smoke, which got bumped from last summer to potentially this summer, but that's probably unlikely to happen due to restrictions. So she's playing the mother in that, or at least I hope she'll still be available next year to play in that. And she was also slated to be some really fun roles in our Christopher Durang plays that are based on Tennessee Williams that, crossed fingers, we should be go for this fall under the collective title For Whom the Southern Belle Tolls, which will be, again, the second time we do something that's not strictly Tennessee. Right.
By the way, I don't know whether or not you've seen it or you got an opportunity to see it, but I believe it's still available until like April the 11th. But the Lincoln Theater organization up in New York is presenting Christopher Durang's Vanya, Sonia, Masha, and Spike with the original cast from the Broadway production, which of course includes David Hyde Pierce, Shalita Grant, who people will remember from NCIS New Orleans for 3 or 4 seasons that she was on.
Gurney Weaver.
Gurney Weaver in a wonderful role.
And Billy Magnuson from
Billy Magnuson is Spike, and I'm trying to remember the. Was it Kathleen Nielsen? I think is the other actor who played Sonia. I mean, great performances. I mean, wonderful, and it's free. If you get a chance to go out to Lincoln Theater, go to look it up. It's on my own page. If you go to my Facebook page, it's free to go see. And if you want to make a donation, obviously afterwards, if you enjoy it. But how wonderful that show was, and we did it here locally. Now you see something like that. I would love to see you do, even though it's not Tennessee Williams, and I know that. But
well, we've got our Christopher Durang locked and loaded for the fall. So you just gotta wait. It's everything this year is you just gotta wait a little longer.
Yeah. Well, I got my shot, so I'm glad. That's all I can tell you. I've been sitting my butt in a number of seats since November, and that was before I had my vaccinations. I feel like it's important that we take steps to sort of lead. And I know that people don't want to go to restaurants. They don't want to go to places where people are. They're afraid to, be seen in a public space. And I understand that. But we're never going to be able to return to normal unless we're able to take those baby steps and take a chance every night. I mean, frankly, to tell you the truth, if you're inoculated, you're pretty much guaranteed that you're not going to die. Now, you might get sick. There's a possibility there's a possibility that if you get infected, you might not be sick at all. That the virus might be thwarted by what you've got in terms of going around in your system. But, I'm not a doctor. I'm not pretending to be one. I can only tell you that there's a figure in the Hebrew Bible called Nashusan. I don't know if you know who that is. But when the Red Sea split, there had to be one guy who took the first steps onto the bed of the sea to walk across it, to get across the other side. That's Nashusan, okay? He was the guy who led the way. I'm not saying that I have to be that or that you have to be that, but somebody has to do that, and then people can follow. As long as there's somebody who pioneers, who crafts the way for others to follow, we'll all get to the other side. We're all going to be able to manage. We will get there, but we'll get there a lot quicker if there's some people who are a little bit more brave than others. And that's all I'm saying.
And people are getting, safer by the day. The vaccines are getting into people's arms. And as I said before, we just have to wait just a little bit longer. But I mean, it's so close. We can all taste it. I think that we're really going in the right direction. I'm extremely optimistic about the fall. And I know some companies have already begun producing. Some of them are in places that's more fiscally and socially solvent. So just producing in New Orleans was always tough.
Yes.
Always catch as catch can. Now it's still for many companies quite prohibitive, simply because with the restrictions that we have in place, you would have to sell at a higher capacity than you're able to seat in order to pay your performers and to pay your designers, which really is the heart and soul, is making sure that those artists are being compensated for the time, and in some cases the struggle of making that work while they also probably have their day jobs or their other night jobs or their number of side hustles. So we just want to make sure that it's responsible to do with our actors and equitable, and that we're taking care of our people in addition to presenting material that we hope audiences are excited to see.
Two of our local theater companies, two of the artistic directors have resigned. They've had to move on. Aimee Hayes at Southern Rep and Maxwell Williams at Le Petit. And that right there, are two of the major posts that we have for people who are involved in theater. And that tells you the kind of flux that we're in. I know Don Scott Cooper is going to do a great job filling in for Maxwell. And I'm sure that the new person who has taken over, who has not even been introduced, that I know he's out there, but I think his name's Sam, but nobody's introduced us yet from Southern Rep. They're going to all be doing the best job that they can, given the situation that we're in and the cards that have been dealt. But I have to say, that in a normal year, which this has not been, but in a normal year, to lose one of those persons would have been a major event. To lose two already is quite telling. And I can tell you that we look at the other players involved. JPAS, Dennis Asaf has thankfully been sort of, I don't want to say bulletproof, but he's been able to continue doing some incredible work. Anthony Bean still is in charge of his group because, after all, it is his theater company, and that's not a problem. But and of course at Rivertown, Gary Rucker and Kelly Fushi are again the artistic directors of their own company, and they're sort of doing some things now that are more or less kid centric, but they're going to be hopefully opening up that are going to be for more adult fare a little bit later. But again, the people that are still around kind of are setting their own destinies. I mean, you and Nick are kind of in that camp too. You all founded your own company. Nobody's on the board about to kick you out. NOLA project. That it's pretty safe to say that AJ Allegra is fairly safe in his place right now, because nobody could ever blame AJ for the pandemic. I mean, so they're going to be a lot more flexible in terms of how they would look at it. But this has been a disaster for theater. I mean, it's been, I would say probably there's never been a year as bad for New Orleans theater as this one. And,
and you were Katrina.
Yeah. Companies were struggling as it was. But even in Katrina, we had plays up and running at the end of the year. In November, December, they had Waiting for Godot.
Yeah.
And they had Le Chat Noir reopened. And
I was at the Williams Festival the very next year, drove down from Columbus, Mississippi, stayed at an unair-conditioned hostel on Lopez Street. It was a muggy mess, but it was here, and there were people gathering purposefully. I think what's been so troubling this year for our larger mainstay companies is that the smaller companies, especially those companies that are unhoused, like TWTC and the NOLA project, who maybe have a partnership with a larger organization but don't have the ship to have to maintain, which is a venue. It's been so much less painful for some of these smaller companies. I mean, we've seen No Dream Deferred, in fact, is like getting bigger throughout this because they're using that opportunity to sort of grow their base of support. So we're still seeing some growth, but it's in these smaller, nimbler companies that are not burdened with, in many cases, the venue issue. Even Jefferson Performing Arts Society, the building isn't as much of a liability for them because the parish does, and even the city of Kenner does. They help some of these companies out in Jefferson Parish, but in New Orleans, we just really desperately need the infrastructure that supports performing arts that aren't live music, which I love my live music, but it's not the only thing. And even the restrictions as we re-enter being able to produce, the restrictions are geared toward live music, and there's not really a carve out for theater that recognizes what we do as something different than what they do. And so we just really need to rethink how we structure our theatrical landscape when we reopen, because we have the opportunity to lay in some guardrails and some steps for people to climb up on.
We're talking with Augustin Correro tonight, folks. I hope that some of you may have some questions or some comments. I have not seen anything tonight. I would love to think that we're so, interesting that people have not had an opportunity to post a comment or a question, and that we've captivated them in such a way that they haven't had an opportunity to post something online. But, I'd love to also entertain any questions that they may have, because right now, it's up to them to post those questions. But I'd love to know a little bit more about what you're planning in terms of the future with your company, because I know, as I said, Nick is hopefully going to be on one time soon. But in terms of what you're looking to do in the future, what are some of the pieces that you haven't produced yet? I mean, they just did the Tennessee Williams film that was translated into a play, Baby Doll, at Le Petit, And I thought to myself, gee whiz, I wish I had seen what the Tennessee Williams Theater Company would have done with that. Now, the set, by the way, was massive. I don't know whether or not you could have done as good a job with what was done on that set. But let's not go there. Let's just talk about being able to do that particular. Would you all be interested in doing some of the films that Tennessee Williams had done and translate them into productions?
Certainly, but before I do that, I just want to mention my friend popped in to see us.
Oh, okay.
So this is the Nightingale, and he's just one of the. So you're asking about future plans and adaptations and things that you maybe haven't already seen before. So this is the Nightingale. He's based on Tennessee Williams himself. And so speaking of adaptations, this weekend we begin streaming through the Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival, the Felt Menagerie, which is it's a puppet comedy based on Tennessee Williams characters and situations. So you have characters like Blanche Dubious, Amanda Wingwaffle, and Violet Vengeable, as well as, of course, the Nightingale that you see here. And so these puppets were crafted by Ken Thompson, who did our set for Suddenly Last Summer, which you might remember, as well as he's a member of the NOLA project. We crafted 7 fantastic Tennessee Williams themed puppets. We have a cast of puppeteers and actors, and the entire thing turns the convention of Zoom on its head because we're using puppets in Zoom, which is perhaps the stupidest thing that's ever happened in the entire pandemic. So hopefully that's going to be something that's interesting. And also, just speaking of the future, this is the very near future, and Nightingale just popped in to say hello, everybody, and let you all know that that is happening. Now, I'm going to let Nightingale head back off to whatever bar stool he's headed toward. But you bring up Baby Doll, which, to disambiguate just a little bit, so that was, I want to say it was the Emily Mann adaptation of Baby Doll. And so what was so unique to me about that was that there was a production of an adaptation of Baby Doll, which was a film, because the playwright decided to adapt it into a play. But Tennessee Williams already wrote a play version of Baby Doll called Tiger Tail.
Right.
It didn't have the name recognition. I was curious to know, not necessarily why Love Petite did that, but why
why did they do the play? Right.
Why did they adapt it to begin with?
Right.
Which I don't know that I'll ever get an answer to that question.
Well, I think it's the fact that it had name recognition to a certain extent. It was Carol Lindley wasn't that the person who had done it originally? Carol Lindley?
Carol Baker?
Maybe Carol Baker. It was a blonde actress from the early '60s that had done it, and I think maybe had done some other things. And you mentioned the Menagerie, so I wanted to kind of like put a picture up too to show that that's the puppet style. That's what is that $10 or $5? I don't remember which way.
It's $10.
Okay.
Which all that really essentially goes to paying the actors and the puppeteers, because our goal here is to make sure that they're paid, and hopefully we don't go into the hole on this thing, but we really just wanted to do something fun and lively for the Williams Festival this year.
And a point that I needed to make on this is that in case anybody's interested in seeing this, it's part of the Tennessee Williams Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival, but it is only available through the Tennessee Williams Theater Company, correct?
Right. So you just go to twtheaternola.com, and there's a link right there to buy your tickets. There's a way to find it on the website for the Williams Festival as well. They'll link you through. But if you just go to our Facebook page, which is TW Theater NOLA, our Instagram at TW Theater NOLA, or just twtheaternola.com.
Now, it said March the 26th, but if I'm not mistaken, it goes more than just March 26th. It's over a period of days, right?
Yeah, so it's not live. It is a pre-recorded streaming thing that it's paying to watch it. So it's like a little short Tennessee Williams movie. It runs about an hour. So it's a nice, meaty chunk of Tennessee Williams themed foolishness. So it's just a lot of fun, and there's lots of Tennessee Williams Easter eggs. Our stage manager is not a real Tennessee Williams scholar, she would say, and she really enjoyed the first read because she didn't know any of the characters hardly. but also the people who did know Tennessee Williams were also cracking up because there are a lot of Tennessee Williams jokes in there.
I do remember the glass mendacity, isn't that right? The name of it.
That does sound familiar.
Yeah. And again, references to all the different Tennessee Williams pieces. But again, as long as you can have fun, and you can have fun with puppets. So, what could be better than that?
If you're tired of watching things on the internet, you forgot you're not tired of watching puppets.
Right. That's true. And I wanted to go back just before we get finished, because we're getting towards the end of the hour and we only have about 5 minutes left. But I want to thank you for being here. But I wanted to go over a couple more of the photos that we had, just to reiterate. I mean, we went over Kingdom of Earth, we went over One Arm, we went over View Carré for the most part, and of course you mentioned Carol Sutton, and this is a picture that we hadn't shown yet. That was her, and that was Camino Real, right? That was the name that Tennessee had said. Camino Real was Camino Real. Okay.
Rating anglicized pronunciation.
Everything was anglicized. It wasn't Camino, it was Camino, and it wasn't Real, it was Real. Yeah. Yep. Leave it to Tennessee to come up with that. And again, this was another piece. Carol was just such a wonderful actor, and I'm so sorry that we lost her this past year. But she was committed to her craft, and there wasn't anything going to stop her from performing. And again, we thought she was doing all the things that people were supposed to do, and she had difficulty being able to come back from him. We're so sorry, but what a wonderful actor, and again, I know that you were thrilled to have her in your production. So this is Milk Train.
Yeah, it's Eli Hood.
And that was a great production. Again, just to reiterate, him up against the wonderful Janet Shea, and I mean, you've had so many great productions, and it's been you really haven't been around as long as others. Obviously not as long as the Community Theater for Le Petit, which is over 100 years. Although they were closed for a couple while they were regrouping and reconnoitering, I guess you might say. But I mean, still, they have a great history, and even if you go back far enough to talk about Rivertown starting up, for 25 years as Rivertown Repertory, and then for the last almost 10 or so as Rivertown Theaters for the Performing Arts, that's about 35 years, and of course, JPAS has been around for a long time. So you're sort of one of the youngsters. I mean, even Southern Rep started up in the early 1990s. With
NOLA project was the year after Katrina, even, which we consider to be not that long ago, but then we remember it was
15 years now. So they actually started up the year of Katrina, in 2005. They were actually here when Katrina hit, and they had to make that decision: do we want to come back? And they did, and thankfully, because I have to say, of all the local theater companies, I think that they have done the most without a brick and mortar store or front or venue, whatever you want to call it, to really invigorate theater in New Orleans and really, bring a fresh taste to it. I mean, I just wish some other company would eventually do more like Assassins and things like that they did. They hadn't done too many musicals, but they've done so many wonderful works, and the actors involved are so incredibly gifted, and I know that you probably would like to have a resident company of people to do some of your plays as well, or Tennessee's plays as well. But you have nothing to be worried about in terms of the legacy you've left in the few short years that you've been around. You've done quite well for yourselves, and I think that people who have been to any of your productions have been very satisfied with the work that's been going on. I know that we're getting ready to close out, but I know I talked with my friend and your mutual friend David Kaplan up in New York, and we're very proud of you guys. You guys have done well, not just for yourselves, but for theater in New Orleans, and thank you, for everything that you've done and will continue to do. And again, Nick, you're next. I'm going to say it right now. So if anybody wanted to get the book, tell me how they can get it.
So there's a few ways to grab it. It is on Amazon, but of course I always tell people get it from your local booksellers. Bookshop.org has partnerships with a number of local booksellers, so you could go through bookshop.org, see if your bookstore is able to order it, and portions of that go toward local nonprofits as well as local bookstores. And then you could also just ask your local booksellers, hey, could you order this? We had a bumpy start. The publisher didn't necessarily get them out to, for example, Octavia or Garden District Books, or I had to shake the branches a little bit. But if you let your booksellers know, it won't be Amazon Prime in your mailbox 2 days later, but it would still help our local booksellers. So,
and let's just make the point, Tom Lowenberg and all the people. I know Brenton Trice used to be at Garden District. I know they were just sold recently, so I don't know whether or not he's still there working as a consultant or whatever. But I mean, anytime we can support our local people, please do so. It's really important because, you know, I used to be in retail locally, Smith's Records, you know, and I know how it is to go head to head with Virgin Records and with Tower Records and, you know, all the different big chains. People need to have that support. And yes, you might have to pay $1, you know, a piece more, but you're helping these people stay afloat, and you're helping your local community, you know, with people who pay taxes locally, not necessarily on the internet, you know, so keep that in mind. Augustin, good luck to you. I will look forward to maybe seeing you coming in from Mississippi, from Columbus, and hopefully, I'll get a chance to be part of that. I want to thank everybody for being with us tonight. I'm going to ask you to stick around for a little bit while I, move on. I'm going to tell everybody that I wanted to thank them for being here tonight. NOLA Theater Talk. My name, again, is Alan Smason, and I'm here pretty much every Monday and Friday. This Friday, don't forget, we have a wonderful show for Tennessee Williams' birthday. You can see it on the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, on the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, on my own YouTube channel. And again, I thank you all for being here tonight. I will see you all at the theater.